You know, of all the directions a new character like Himiko could end up going, a degrading sub-kink was not on the top of my list, gotta be honest here. But I am so happy it ended up occurring. From Komi's phone, which was an adorable situation, to the kissy face towards the end that didn't really go according to plan, to this girl who, I mean, at first it's kind of introduced in a pretty Komi light in the way that she thinks she's chubby or she has short legs and that she's not very good at maybe communicating. You know, it just pretty much was building up in the natural way I kind of assumed. I was expecting some form of like goofy twist. I just wasn't expecting the Komi's dog line or how she very much is living up to that master servant role. And hey, you know, power to you. The only issue is it seems Komi may not be comfortable with that. And you gotta make sure there's a two-way streak when it comes to that kind of a situation, but leave it to Komi can't communicate. And I mean, seriously, like, I don't really take a look at this show when I'm not talking about it because, I mean, one, it's such a weird release schedule. Netflix is basically a week behind the way I'm covering this, and then there's some fan subs that aren't even on torrent sites, so then there's actually a week ahead of me. So I just avoid the internet as much as possible when talking about this because I want to go into this type of stuff blind. Not because I think I could be spoiled on kink fetishes, but hell, you never quite know what's going to pop up with Komi Can't Communicate. And holy shit, was this a pleasant surprise for me. I think the idea of someone who's socially awkward and has the inability to communicate with people, having her what seems to be like, I mean, this is like the perfect time for an episode like this to air. Given it's Halloween season, you know, it's pretty much a Michael Myers situation. You think she's about to slice you and dice you, and hell, even knowing what she's probably trying to do, it's hard not to look at some of these scenes and say, Komi, what are you doing? Why are you looking like that? So to see it from a new character's perspective, and I mean, really, I was expecting, I'm not going to say I was assuming something like sexually deviant, but there was something about her. I wasn't sure exactly what. But when it did pop up in the bathroom and she went full blown, I was like, oh, we on Rule 34 here? What's going on here? I was caught off by surprise while in the back of my head saying, you know what? This kind of all makes sense, not gonna lie. And to eventually see it from Komi's perspective, I mean, it wasn't anything too detailed, but it definitely shows you why she ended up in that situation, which of course we knew she actually wasn't gonna kill her or she wasn't a psycho, but sometimes the visuals make it hard not to kind of agree with the side character saying, you know what? Whatever they're thinking, whatever they're feeling, even though we know the truth about her inability to communicate, it kind of feels like we want to side with them right now, given the kind of JoJo level, like, villain energy radiating off of her with those, like, dagger eyes. Though the phone situation, as much as the kinky was definitely funny and entertaining, the phone was probably my favorite thing because it's something you don't think about, at least I know I wasn't. But when it comes to, like, the fear of talking with people, there's different ways that, you know, kind of stage fright can set in. For me, when I was in school, I hated, like, public speeches. Like, if you had to stand up or you had to give a presentation, even if the classroom size was small, like, that petrified me. Like, I'd literally skip school and get, like, failing grades on presentations just because I didn't want to do that. Ultimately, though, like, when I started doing YouTube, that was a common thing for me throughout all of high school. Like, I just didn't like it, and it scared the living shit out of me. In high school, I was able to, like, there was this one presentation I did in, like, my 12th grade where I was allowed to sit behind the teacher's desk because I was doing, like, a slideshow. So that kind of helped, but it was still pretty damn scary. Ultimately, when I started doing YouTube, I realized I don't care if 1 million people watch a video of mine. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. And it's weird because you would think, you know, having the ability of putting yourself online forever would be way more scary for me than talking to 20 kids in a classroom, but, you know, stage fright sets in differently for every single person. The reason I went on that long tangent is you can understand why Komi was actually able to talk briefly on the telephone, because for her, face to face, she's never been able to do it. That literally petrifies her, and it turns her into what looks like a JoJo villain at times. So for her to accidentally call Tadano and then him call back, immediately recognizing that she probably made a mistake, and then she pretended to be like the number is out of service. The fact that because she wasn't looking directly at him, and because there was kind of like this sense of like a safety blanket, you completely understand why she was able to do that, and it still stays true to her sort of stage fright when it comes to communication. And I mean, once again, I have to really commend this show for getting communication disorders so damn right, because it feels very genuine and believable with steady development. And you can see, like, maybe over the course of this anime, we'll have a few more phone calls where he'll end up calling and maybe just kind of like starting it, kind of like getting the momentum going, and she'll say a couple of things like a new voice message, even though they both know probably, well, she probably believes he buys it, but he's obviously going to know that she's really speaking and it's not a communication at a service message or something like that. Now, in terms of the game in this episode, where, Tadano had all the right intentions, right? He can tell that she wants to play with the popular kids, but one, it's pretty hard to break through, and two, you want to kind of go subtly, right? Where, with Osana, that's just all bets are off, just don't try to drag me into your bullshit. It's kind of like the difference of a parent who starts training their kid in the shallow end of the pool versus the parent who just pushes into the deep end, because they're like, even if they start drowning, I'm here, I'm going to be able to save them anyway. And the whole kissy face reward I thought was pretty interesting. And I gotta commend the fan subs for still continuing to do pretty good work in terms of all the rules. I imagine when Netflix gets around to this episode, I'm going to assume there's a Wikipedia one sentence definition of all those rules where fan subs went the extra mile to translate all the text on screen, which literally was a goddamn wall. But seriously, it was fun to see how he kind of got around it. I thought she was actually going to make a gross kissy face or something like that after the school bell rang and they all kind of left. I thought it was going to be a funny moment where you think it's going to be romantic, and then she does this really venomous horrible kissy face. But it was still nice, the direction they went, all things considered. Though I will say my all-time favorite part of this episode is when our girl comes running, because basically Komi ends up standing up for herself and going to collect the numbers by herself. Doesn't want to have Tadano with her. And then you see her come back because she wants Tadano in the phone first, right? And then you see our girl running, being like, wait, do you want me to be like a dog? You want to take a picture? And I'm like, what? Why? Why are you doing this at school? There's a time and a place. I understand there's ninjas sitting in classrooms. I understand there's some freaky nature here. And power to you if you want to have that freaky nature in your life, but there's a time and a place, my girl, and holy shit. This show is great, and it's a shame it does have an odd release window because there's so many different ways to watch it, whether you're watching the bare minimum subs on Netflix, whether you're watching pretty decent subtitles from individual fan groups, or you're waiting for the absolute quality fan subs from groups like NovaWorks, which basically come out shortly before the Netflix release, but their subs are well worth a rewatch, even if you did a normal watch with pretty good fan subs like I used for episode 3, but Komi's great. It's a show that I have no problem rewatching a couple of different times with different subgroups, because it's just something the more detailed, the more flashy of subbing and titling that they do, the more into the performances you can really get because of just how personal everything about this show is, from the art, the animation, to even the vocal performances. Despite Komi not saying all too much, that phone message was really well done directing, and I still question, is she getting paid the same amount she normally would, or is it a per line basis? Because Komi hasn't said all too much, but, good voice actors nonetheless. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below, your favorite moment, and what do you hope to see with episode 4 when we do check it out, if you haven't checked it out already. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.